Greetings, Carl.
Hello, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I am swimming in data these days because
Oh boy.
we wrapped up we actually just wrapped up our advisor technology study. So we like go out there and do look at all the different technology vendors, who's using what, so we can calculate market share, who likes what, so we can calculate satisfaction ratings. And part of what we did with this year's study in particular was we linked some of the data back to the productivity study we did last fall. Because, technology is supposed to give you all sorts of cool productivity benefits. And so we wanted to start looking at both the link between technology sort of sophistication, like how good are you at like really getting the most out of your tech, and productivity, as well as the study we did previously. Like we looked at a whole bunch of other factors that impact productivity. And so there were a couple of really interesting findings that we had. The most disturbing of which, and I'll come back to this in a little bit more detail soon, was that so when we measure productivity, the primary ways that we measure it is we look at how much revenue each advisor manages. So just
Mm,
think like your total revenue divided by how many advisors who are responsible for clients, right? Which is sort of in
mm,
the purest sense, like how good is the firm at converting the limited number of hours that an advisor can work and do advisor things all year long into revenue that they get paid for doing the things that they do.
mm,
The secondary metric that we look at is revenue per employee. So just take your revenue divided by your total head count, and you kind of get to a
mm,
similar thing, which is, on average, uh, how much can you convert all the work that the firm does for clients into actual money that gets earned. And one of the nice things about using revenue per metrics is it's kind of a cool equalizer. Like, look, I don't care whether you work with 300 mass affluent clients, 100 clients who have half a million to $1 million, or like a couple of dozen clients that are much bigger. Any of those can equalize out to the same amount of revenue. So, your choice. You can do big fancy things for a small number of high dollar clients. You can do quote simpler things for high volume of smaller dollar clients, and we equalize out to the same way. Except what
mm.
we find in our research is that it does not equal out in the same way. And technology isn't even the biggest driver of what the productivity outcomes are. It turns out the biggest driver of productivity outcomes is how affluent your clients are. It's like full stop.
Hmm.
Uh, how much money they have to pay you fees. So mathematically, this is essentially your revenue per client. Do you work with people who pay you $3,000 a year, or $10,000 a year, or $20,000 a year, or $50,000 a year if you're working with like really, really high dollar clients? The more affluent the clients, and kind of the bigger the AUM portfolio, since most of us are AUM based, the more affluent clients, the bigger the portfolios, the higher the revenue productivity for the advisor. And it wasn't even a little bit close. Like the average advisor whose typical client is 250 to 500 manages about 300,000 of revenue. The average advisor whose clients are $2 million averages 5 or 600 grand of revenue.
Mm.
The advisor whose average client is 5 million plus averages $1.2 million of revenue. They
That,
all have the same number of hours in the year. Like,
right.
not like someone's like magically got extra hours to take on extra clients to do extra revenue generating things. Like, just the raw affluence of the clients. Like, literally, the advisors who average 5 million plus clients generate 4 times the revenue of advisors who average $500,000 clients. Like, 4x the revenue
Eh,
difference.
And that seems rather odd. Like, explain to me why you're surprised by this.
I mean, I guess I'm
I'm trying
surprised.
to get my head around. I'm trying to get my head around it
I'm
because it seems to
surprised
me
I'm not.
that's
So I guess a few things. One, again, from like a pure convert the hours that I spend doing client things into revenue. I know my idealist self, maybe this is just my idealist self, would say,
right,
look,
right.
I can work with 20 clients who pay me 50 grand a piece, or I can work with 300
Mm,
clients who pay me 3 grand a piece.
mm,
Both add up to about a million. And so I
right.
just get to decide, like, do I want to go really deep with fewer clients or do I want to go less deep with many clients?
Mhm.
And just choose in the spectrum where I want to be. And what we find in the data, just like very dramatically, nothing else we looked at had a 4x impact on productivity. I mean, a lot of us, like, we invest in a tech to make ourselves like 5% more efficient, and this is
Right,
400%
right,
more efficient.
right,
Like
right, right,
it's so
right,
off the charts
right.
relative to tech, and that was part of our indirect finding was, yeah, like you can work your backside off trying to get more effective tech, or you can just move up market to clients who have slightly more assets and revenue to pay you, and averaging up your clients just obliterates any improvements anybody gets from tech because affluence of clients and willingness to pay is so dominating in
For
the financial outcomes.
yeah, for the other one to for your ideal picture you painted to be true, what would have to be true is that dealing with 300 clients, what did you say the average was?
Call it like 3 grand, 3,300 if you want to get technical to get to.
Yeah, yeah, 300 clients that pay 3 grand a year, it would have to be would have to be equal work.
Correct.
Like,
Well,
meaning,
it
and
but it
what
but
not
it
only is
but
it
it
not,
is but it is because look, like both of these advisors have full-time jobs. They work approximately the same hours a year. I mean, some of us work slightly more or less than 40 hours a week, but on the whole, like, I got 2,000 working hours a year, so I can put I can put 7 hours a year towards 300 clients, or I can put 20 hours a year towards a smaller number of big clients, or I can put 200 hours a year towards 10 multifamily office clients. Like, we all have the same time. I mean, literally, the amount of work
but
the quantity of work, the time it takes to do the work.
yeah, but you
Is
don't have, there must not be, because this wouldn't be showing up in your day. If there was equal numbers of people who had 20 clients as people who had 300 clients, and they were making they were making the numbers you're pointing to. I can't remember the numbers we used exactly. The reality here is that high I think I know I did. We underestimate the work it takes to serve. I always think the situation is simpler, so it won't take me as much time, so I can have more of them.
right. Well, yes, which I think is part of why this curve doesn't work in practice.
That's
Right.
right.
So you move up market, like you work with clients who pay 5 times as much. They don't take 5 times the time. They take more time. They take more time.
Well, there's
But the
actually
more
some argument. There's actually some argument that in some ways there there's some argument that in some ways they're actually easier to deal with.
um
Like,
with some dollar dynamics.
yeah,
You
maybe
get
the
I mean,
situations are more complex.
we see this in our numbers as well. Like there's remarkably little difference in how much time advisors spend with like $300,000 clients versus 700,000 AUM clients. But there is a pretty material difference in how much time we spend with like $700,000 clients and multi-million dollar clients.
mainly because the
On
situation is more
average, like
complicated.
obviously individual clients have more and less needs
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
any particular year. But I mean, look, if only because the higher the dollar the client, the more you're like, well, I need to meet with them more. Like I need to do more things for them because they pay me a lot of money and I don't want them to fire me and say, what have you done
Yeah.
for me lately? Like we
Yeah.
all seem to have a compulsive drive, if nothing else, to try to spend more time
Justify. Yeah. Yeah.
with our bigger clients because we want to justify the fees they're paying by. I mean, I'm not saying this in a wasteful way. Like, I really want to do more awesome things for you because you're a very valuable client, and I would like to keep.
Yeah.
So, like, what else
Yeah.
can I do for you? That would be wonderful for you. The
Yeah.
the thing that shifts though, and like why this sort of equation breaks and doesn't hold in my ideal world of 20 giant clients or 300 little clients is that the sheer math of it comes down to it turns out more affluent clients just literally are willing to pay more for advice. Like they just pay more. If I take the
Right.
advisor's revenue and I divide it by how many hours they work doing client things, what you quickly get to is the average advisor working with a mass affluent client makes about $250 an hour, and the average advisor working with multi high net worth millionaires makes $1,000 an hour. Because it
Right.
turns out people with a lot of money in complex situations are willing to hire $1,000 an hour professionals, and folks with more limited dollars just at some point say, I that's just too expensive. I can't afford it.
Yeah.
Pick different
Yeah.
ones. And I think in like in the lawyer sense, some people hire the $250 an hour legal associates, and some people hire the $1,000 an hour partners.
Yep.
And if you look
Yep.
at who hires the $1,000 an hour partner and who hires the 250, $300,000 associate, like there's usually a pretty big correlation to the affluence, net worth, financial capability, complexity of the person doing the hiring at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Or viewed another way, right? Just people with a lot of money are outbidding, are buying up the best advisors by giving them large portfolios and paying them very, very well for their time, and then filling up their client capacity to not be able to take any more.
So interesting, right? This reminds me of a friend who has a knowledge product business, right? Like writes books and does coaching and retreats. And he gives away 97, the number he uses is he gives away 97% of his content. So he has no $20 product, no $200 product, no $500 product. All of that's free. And he charges, thousands of dollars for his products, like $5,000 or something. And he just ran the math. And I think this is a very similar thing. Like when you actually sit down and count the cost, and his claim is like people paying $5,000 for a coaching session or something ask different questions. They have different expectations than
Yep.
somebody who pays $20.
Yep.
And he said the math when like to get to the same revenue number, it's just especially when you include conversion rates and close rates and
Yep.
like lifetime value of a client and how long are they going to stay around. It's like it's just orders of magnitude. And then I think that's where you quickly get to Dan Sullivan's book, 10x is easier than 2x. Like I think there's probably some marketing hyperbole in that title, but it's pointing this directionally to something very interesting.
Yes, right. In that sense, like it's easier to 10x your business by moving up market to higher dollar clients than it is to 2x your business by eking out incremental technology benefits by implementing better tech with better integrations and better workflows and all of
Yeah.
that. Again, like I say that as a tech enthusiast and like publishes a map and founded a tech company. Like I really like tech,
Uh,
but uh just the magnitude of productivity lift that comes from moving up market is just so more dramatic. Like trying to get incrementally more efficient doing $250 an hour work by leveraging tech just still gets obliterated when you work with $1,000 an hour clients.
Okay, so let me ask you a practical question. Because like reduced to its absurd conclusion, you could say, okay, great. Well, the advice is just decide to have only super high net worth clients.
Y- yes, and or I mean that's usually a hard magic wand to wave,
That's why I called it the absurd conclusion.
but look, the it does give you some really striking implications when you look at how to scale an advisory business, right? Which most of
Yep.
us mean like expand margin, expand productivity, expand margins, drive more revenue per team member so that we've got more profit that drops the bottom line. Because what it implied, the way most advisory firms today that I see try to quote scale up their margins is we need to invest more and more into better tech so that we can drive more efficiency for the firm, so that we can expand our client capacity. Because if I can serve 120 clients instead of 100, that all drops the bottom line. Or if I can serve 250 instead of 200, or 80 instead of 60, or like whatever it is in your practice, if we can get tech to expand the advisor capacity and help them handle more clients, we'll be more profitable.
Right.
And what we see in our data is if you look at the firms that actually successfully expand their productivity and scale, they go the exact opposite direction, which
So
is
fascinating. Yeah.
they start shedding clients and average up in the process. Or like
Right.
I'm not doing anything to expand my client capacity. I'm just only going to add clients above my average, and every time I add one, I'm going to subtract one below my
Yep.
average, right? I'm going to
Yep.
partial book sale or hand them off to another advisor in the firm or turn them a house account, right? We all have different options depending on what kind of platform we're with. But they either average up one on, one off, so my revenue keeps going up and my client load doesn't increase, and when we look at the highest productivity advisors, they all unequivocally have below average client loads. Very high dollars. So like the math adds up very well. You know, they go from 250 mass affluent to 100 millionaires. And then they go from 100 millionaires to 50 multi millionaires. And in the process of going from 300 to 200 to 100 to 50, their average revenue, they cut their client load by 80%, but if you started with mass affluent clients, frankly, it doesn't take that much to 5x your average clients. Like if you go from $3,000 clients to 6,000 to 9,000 to 12,000 to 15,000, you have now 5x'd your average revenue per client. And granted, that's still like not an easy switch to flip overnight. But if I look out there at advisory firms that have been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years, most of us just already drift upmarket over time.
Mhm.
We get more established in our community and we get more known. And some of our clients that started out small get big, and then they tell their big friends,
Right. Right.
and we start getting referrals from the person we went to college with, and now it's been 20 years, and they have money, and they've seen us on LinkedIn for the past 2 decades. Like just
Right. Right.
opportunities start to come. It's always the frustration to experience an advisor. You're like, where were these clients 10, 20 years ago when I really needed
Right.
them? Not today
Right.
when I'm already doing well. But I just again, to me, like the narrative out there these days is the path to expanded productivity is we use tech to increase our client load. And what we see in the data is it goes so much further when you actually reduce client load to go deeper with your highest value clients and then incrementally try to get more of them over time. Again, that doesn't have to be a wholesale cut everything. That can be one on, one off. That can be one on, two off. I mean, for a lot of us that have been doing this 10 or 20 years, if I had a client that's above average, you could probably subtract three or four of your smallest clients
Right.
and still net ahead.
Right. Right.
And so you average up on the average client while you bring down the client load. And part of the question of like, well, how do you get more affluent clients? The first answer is, well, you clear more capacity to be able to go deeper with the good ones that you've got so that you can drive referrals and create other activity. Because most of us don't realize how time constrained we are until you really have fewer clients and realize how much deeper you can go with them.
Yeah. And I love always thinking incremental. And my brain is always like, take big, rash, aggressive choices. You know
Or
what I
you could
mean?
do a partial book sale and sell 80% of your bottom clients because, the top 20% probably generates 80% of your profits anyway. So like you could, take a sledgehammer to it if you want, Carl.
I know it's just so fascinating to me how when you get into the math, again, assuming this is an important part of your goal of running a business, and it doesn't have to be. There are
Well,
other reasons to run the business. Like it's fine, but we're holding that assumption. When you start running the math on these things, you're just like, man, no, it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple, right? Like 20% of your clients probably do. I've done this so many times, it's ridiculous. I remember that crazy story. I knew the guy. His name was George. He had 500 clients. Did this exact experience. Was like, I'm burned out. He's the first place I heard the term getting pecked to death by ducks. I feel like I'm getting pecked to death by ducks. He ran a
that's
whole,
like a very brutally blunt way to
yeah.
go. Those
I
beaks are
agree.
not sharp.
I agree. It was 500 clients. He ran them all through a spreadsheet of like who we really want, qualitative and quantitative. And of course, part of the quantitative piece was revenue, profitability of client. And there were 16 of the 500 that fell out of the bottom of that spreadsheet. And then he was like, "Oh, I can't do that." And he went and looked. Those 16 represented like something, it was above 70% of his revenue. And he actually just made the decision. He got rid of 484 clients
Wow.
and then built from there. Basically, he was the first one I heard say like, I bought a 747, I tore out all the seats, and I put in 100 first class seats, and 16 were full.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's it's pretty, it's funny like how much this applies in so many places. So anyway, I think that's, again, assuming this is assuming you get to decide what value you place on profitability and revenue and personal income and who you serve and the kind of work you're doing and all of those things. But if you're running this as just a pure business, it's a pretty simple thing to think about. Now, simple is not easy.
Well, and yes, and there's all sorts of other secondary effects that come from from following this. Again, like it means you're not trying to expand capacity. You're trying to average up while you reduce client count, right? Which takes you to one on one off, one on two off, one on three off, one on four off systems. And then you have to figure out how you're going to gracefully transition clients that don't fit the future of what you're trying to build towards, which gets awkward for some. Um,
Right.
it also indirectly means to the extent you get tech, you start focusing on different tech. And this was one of the other findings that we had from the tech study. Ironically, advisors who view advisors who view the primary benefit of tech as time and cost savings, like the advisors who view tech as an efficiency solution, are drastically less productive than the average advisor.
Hmm.
Advisors who focus on tech for time and cost savings are drastically less productive than the average advisor. The ones who are more productive are the ones who view tech as a pathway to deeper client experience, deeper
Hmm.
advice, and better client experience.
Wow. Very cool.
Because again, if you use it for client experience and device quality, you tend to go up market. And what we found is the advisors that are most focused on using tech for efficiency tend to have a disproportionately high volume of small clients in the first place. So
Hmm.
basically, I have a lot of unprofitable clients, and instead of adjusting fees to cover the cost, I'm looking for tech to bail me out.
Right.
Apologies
Right.
for anyone that was like a hard medicine statement, but like that shows up pretty clearly in our data is why we get like advisors that try to eke out efficiency from tech are actually not growing and scaling nearly as well as the ones that are investing into bigger client opportunities, right? Or like oversimplified, you drive more outcome by going to get Holistiplan and starting to do tax planning for your top clients than you do by picking the next new CRM and trying to get a little bit more workflow efficient.
Right.
And
Right.
if you do that well and you get better clients, you hire another. administrative team member and you don't even go into your CRM anymore because you just delegate that to a team member that you can afford by having higher dollar clients that you
Right,
got by
right,
doing
right,
deeper
right.
tax planning by buying holistic plan. Like that's how the cycle plays
Yeah.
out.
That makes sense. It's super good though to have the numbers behind it.
Now, the one caveat that just I am curious for your thoughts here before we wrap up. Like the I don't know the darker side of this to me, I dark's maybe a harsh word. Um the troubling implication for this is it basically means the advice to any professional who wants to grow and scale your career is you're going to spend the next 30 years going after incrementally richer people until you're done.
Yeah.
And from the perspective of being a helping and a service profession, I don't really love that that's how the math is showing up. It's very clear in the data, but I don't know, like I start to have trouble about with that when I think about are we a broad reaching profession that helps everyone, or are we really mostly a niche thing for affluent folks where you just get more financially successful by working with people who are more affluent?
Yeah, I don't it bugs me too. And I was just having this conversation with my daughter in med school. She's trying to choose her specialty, and she said it just makes all of them kind of sick that, you know, pediatrics.
Yeah.
Oh, the one she was telling me about was infectious disease is like one of the lowest paying specialties you can get. I mean, think about that.
Like preventing the diseases that can actually kill all of literally
And
all
guess and like elective dermatology is one of the highest paid.
because people with money like to change how they look.
So I was like,
Which
I
ability to
remember
it.
telling her the exact thing. I was like, man, this sounds so familiar. I remember sort of like getting into the business of financial planning because I wanted to help people, and then waking up one day calculating how to best deduct the private jet and just being like, how did I get here? So I think there are people who want to be elective dermatologists, and there are people who want to be pediatrics, who want to do pediatrics or infectious disease. And I think we just got to be okay with that's how markets work. And if we're in this system and we're not going to change this system, then we just decide what is it for you? Because it's like this research you did not show that it's a bad career or bad
Well,
business to
correct. And I'll highlight like the advisors working in the mass affluent, like they did generate several $100,000 of revenue per
doing fine,
advisor. It was enough to make a six-figure income, which is
doing fine.
better than the average American. Like it's a good financially successful career. It works. Like it works not all the way up and down the wealth spectrum yet, but like it works increasingly far down the wealth spectrum. So, but I actually like how you framed it. Yes, and medicine helps all sorts of people across a wide range. And we can also recognize at the end of the day, elective dermatology does pay a lot more than pediatrics.
Yeah, and we can rail and be bummed about it, and that's okay. And we can hold two things true at the same time. That's the reality, and it's sad. And it's a bum. I remember thinking this all the time. I had such a problem with this early on, such a problem with this because I just remember thinking like, wait, the school teacher, because get out of the business and start thinking about like the school teacher or the paramedic or and like I'm getting paid. I don't even know how you do the number. Like if you're per hour, and I remember having this conversation with a coach. I remember having this conversation with a therapist, and the only way I could get there was like, well, I get to decide where I focus. I could focus on those really high-end profitable business and then use some of that money in other ways. Like there's lots of ways to deal with this, but the fact
Yes,
is that's the way the market works right now. You now get to sort out what choices you want to make.
fair enough.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
and and let's keep thinking about the profession. Let's keep thinking about it.
yes,
But we can hold all of those truths in our heads at the same time with tension.
with tension. I think that's a good
Yeah.
A good way to frame it. Like again, this was not the result I was looking for. Ironically, we started the research trying to figure out like what are the firms who are scaling up really well, working with more clients of more limited means who really need help. I mean that was sort of the underlying research question that I went in looking with, and then the answer we came out with was, oh no, the most financially successful ones just move up market and then hire staff to deal with all their tech problems, and then just keep serving high dollar clients, and the numbers are like drastically
Ridiculous.
irrefutable, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, super fun conversation. This is not something we've now solved all the world's problems, Michael.
Fantastic. Thank you, Carl.
Yes. Okay, cheers.